And we begin tonight with the two portrayals of Donald Trump. The first is the image he wants everyone to believe is the real Trump, exemplified by his rather embarrassing digital trading card venture, where he presented himself as a cowboy, a rock star, and an actual superhero. It's the one his most ardent base ardently believes in. It's the one that earned him a literal cult. But the second image is revealing itself more and more as Trump responds to his multiple indictments. It's the one where he's not the great and powerful whiz who lives in Oz, but rather the man hiding behind the curtain who is terrified and desperate. Richard Pryor killed that role, by the way. Best movie ever. But the point is, Trump has always been able to use his bravado and showmanship to avoid repercussions for his actions. But now, at age 77, he's facing a situation that he cannot talk his way out of, with no powerful dad to bail him out and no Roy Cohn to fix his legal peril. And according to people who know him, Donald Trump is afraid that he could actually wind up in prison, like his Oath Keepers and Proud Boys supporters. Perhaps Orange Jumpsuit Trump might be a more apt addition to the next series of his digital trading cards. And with nowhere else to turn, he's now relying on his loyal followers in Congress, like Speaker Mike Heaven, to somehow save him.
Congress, if you will, please investigate the political witch hunts against me currently being brought by the corrupt DOJ and FBI, who are totally out of control.
Under McCarthy's leadership, they may try, but it will do Trump no good as he faces Jack Smith's multiple investigations, plus those current and possible prosecutions in New York and Georgia. The trouble for Trump is that all of his wild claims about a stolen election, which never turned up a single shred of evidence, continue to fall apart to this day. The latest example comes from the ringleader of his post-election so-called elite strike team of lawyers, Rudy Giuliani. In a court filing yesterday, Giuliani conceded to making false statements about two Georgia election workers he publicized to the world as having committed election fraud, reportedly calling them at one point ballot-stuffing criminal conspirators. Ruby Freeman and her daughter, Shay Moss, were anything but that. They were simply two dedicated election workers performing their civic duty in the 2020 presidential election. But because of Giuliani and Trump, they faced harassment and violent threats. Ms. Freeman had to temporarily abandon her home for her own safety. And now they are suing Rudy Giuliani over his baseless claims about them. Perhaps Rudy's actions should not be all that surprising, given that he admitted under oath in 2021 that he made no effort to verify some of the claims that he was hawking. Now, I should also note that in the same court filing yesterday, Giuliani doesn't concede to any damages based on his false claims. And his lawyers seem to suggest that it was merely a legal maneuver to try to get beyond the fact-gathering stage and into the legal fight. Of course, it didn't matter to Trump or Giuliani that using Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss as pawns would unleash Trump's extreme MAGA cult members on them.
It's turned my life upside down. I no longer give out my business card. I don't transfer calls. I don't want anyone knowing my name. I don't want to go anywhere with my mom because she might yell my name out over the grocery aisle or something. There is nowhere I feel safe. Nowhere. Do you know how it feels to have the President of the United States to target you? The President of the United States is supposed to represent every American, not to target one.
It's one of the worst things that we heard during the January 6th hearings. And at no point have we seen any remorse or contrition from Trump for putting these women and countless others through hell, simply because he could not accept that he lost an election. He was perfectly okay with portraying people as someone that they're not, putting them at risk and making them live in fear. Well, now he's the one living in fear. I'm joined now by Vaughn Dubose, the attorney currently representing Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss. Thank you for being here, Mr. Dubose. I want to start just by clarifying, you're representing them now. Were you in touch with them at the time that they were giving testimony to the January 6th committee? Okay, you're
Absolutely,
muted.
I'm sorry.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I was representing them then. I've been with Ruby and Shay from the beginning, from the time the FBI informed Ruby that she needs to leave her residence, that it was no longer safe there. So I was there working with her to secure her, to get her in a safe place. And then once we accomplished that, we moved on to the next phase of trying to address what's happened to them.
And, watching that testimony, honestly, I was tearful watching it because these are just the exact kind of people we want in our country, people who do their civic duty, who work in repeated elections, trying to make sure that their community can vote. They're the familiar ladies. Ms. Freeman reminds me of the ladies where I always would vote in New York. They know you every year. They say, hey, there you are again, honey. They call you baby, and they make sure you can vote. Seeing them, sort of broken down the way that they were and how hurt they were. How are they doing now?
It's heartbreaking to see that, right? Because of the familiarity you just mentioned with the type of people they are, the type of people you see just going about their business, doing their job, not asking for anything extra. They're just good Atlanta folks who have been serving this community for a long time. As to how they're doing right now, they are, some days are better than others. They still are afraid to walk out in public. They're still concerned about hearing their name called in public. They're still looking over their shoulders. So they're doing the best they can. They're continuing to fight. The great thing about Ruby and Shay is when faced with what they had to deal with in this situation, they could have cowered and gone away. They chose to fight. And that's what they're doing right now.
Let me play, they are suing now Rudy Giuliani, as I mentioned. Here is just, if those can remember some of the things he was saying at the time.
Tape earlier in the day of Ruby Freeman and Shay Freeman Morris and one other gentleman quite obviously surreptitiously passing around USB ports as if they're vials of heroin or cocaine. I mean, it's obvious to anyone who's a criminal investigator or prosecutor, they are engaged in surreptitious illegal activity.
And that was not true, obviously. But talking about them passing USB ports as if they are vials of heroin and cocaine, trying to make them sound like drug dealers. At one point, Kanye West's publicist was pressuring Ms. Freeman and saying, oh, if you just admit to crimes, you can avoid charges, and pretending like they were the law. It is shocking to me how much pressure was put on these women for having done nothing but work in an election. They are suing, obviously, Rudy Giuliani. Is there anyone else that they've considered naming in this lawsuit?
There are some John Does in this lawsuit. As the case progresses, we'll certainly consider whether or not we need to fill in any of those John Does with actual parties. So as of right now, Giuliani is the only defendant, but we're certainly monitoring as we progress whether or not we need to substitute in any individuals, companies, what have you, for these John Doe defendants that we've named.
And are you able to tell us whether or not Fani Willis's office has been in touch with these two ladies about her investigation? Because obviously all of the events that took place in Georgia that Donald Trump perpetrated and his team, they were about election fraud, real election fraud. In other words, trying to steal the election in Georgia. Have they been contacted?
Sure, they've cooperated throughout. From the time they started until law enforcement first started to get involved and investigate everything that was alleged to have occurred at the State Farm Arena. And you saw them cooperate with the January 6th committee, and they intend on cooperating with whatever law enforcement agency wants to talk with them. They're going to do that continually, and they're committed to doing that.
Von Dubose, please let Ms. Freeman and Ms. Moss know they are at the home here on the Readout anytime. And we are big fans of civic duty and of people who participate in elections. I'm a voting enthusiast, so they're heroines to me. So tell them that they got a lot of love here. Thank you so much, Mr. Dubose, for coming on. I
absolutely will. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me turn now to David K. Johnston, founder of DCReport.org. And you heard that, David. The fact that Donald Trump was willing to put two innocent women at risk of being harmed, they had to move out of their home for their own safety. He knows what his supporters are like. He tells them to be violent. He encourages them to be violent. What do you make of the fact that he was so He had no problem with it. He and Giuliani with putting their lives at risk. That's just him, right?
Yeah, Donald, who I've known for more than 35 years now, it does not have a conscience. He only thinks of others in terms of them as objects, not human beings. So this kind of behavior by Donald is very understandable. It's not appropriate, but absolutely understandable. It's the way he's acted his entire life.
And yet, John Kelly, his former chief of staff, who's no, Prince himself, I mean, he did insult a African-American member of Congress, saying she was, all hat, no cattle, for criticizing Trump. So he was all in with Trump at the time. But now he's telling tales. He says Trump is scared S-less about going to prison. That's his take. What is yours?
Oh, I absolutely agree. And you can see in the emails and the blasts he does via Truth Social how his anxiety is growing. He is not sleeping well at night. If Donald really believed that he is completely innocent and has done nothing wrong and that the Presidential Records Act exonerates him on everything, he should be the one pressing for a speedy trial. Hey, let me get in front of a jury and they're going to obviously acquit me. And he knows that he's not going to be acquitted. The best he can hope for is a hung jury.
The same week Donald Trump is anticipating a third indictment, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is conveniently saying he's moving toward an impeachment inquiry into President Biden over the financial dealings of his son, Hunter. Now, I know that sounds dumb, because Republicans have no actual evidence President Biden has actually done anything wrong, or that he and his son are even in business together, or that Hunter Biden has committed offenses besides the actual tax charges he's facing, which, like, hello, Donald Trump, and his attempts to get a gun permit without disclosing his substance abuse, which you'd think would make him a hero to the gun fetish crowd. But of course, none of that matters to Kevin McCarthy, who will do anything, crawl on his belly, do a headstand at Mar-a-Lago while Marjorie Taylor Greene throws peanuts at him, whatever it takes to appease Trump and the MAGA extremists who actually run the Republican caucus. I mean, at this point, Greene and Lauren Boebert, perhaps the two most embarrassing members of the House, have actually had a screaming match on the House floor over who gets to file articles of impeachment against Biden first. Not to mention indicted Congressman George Anthony DeValder Guitarrevas Santos, who yesterday tweeted, "Impeach Biden now," because, yeah. But what this really tells us is that Trump's de facto legal team, a.k.a. the House Republican caucus, is running out of ways to defend him. They've already tried gaslighting the country into thinking he's never done anything illegal and that January 6th wasn't really an insurrection. They've blamed Trump's self-imposed legal troubles on the weaponization of the DOJ. And now they're moving on to Plan C. Since there is no way to actually defend Trump's actions based on facts, their only salvation here is to muddy the waters. If everybody does it, then Trump can't be that bad, right? Basically what they did to Hillary Clinton in 2016. Make both frontrunners seem like they're equally corrupt. That way you feel less guilty supporting the one who actually committed crimes. Joining me now is Congressman Eric Swalwell of California, 2021 impeachment manager, and members of the Judiciary, Intelligence, and Homeland Security Committees. And I mean, that's it, right? I mean, the idea is if you just make Biden seem as bad as Trump, then people can happily vote for Trump.
They're completely bankrupt of any ideas. So yes, they're just moving around between chiding people over their pronouns, showing non-consensual nudes of Hunter Biden, trying to figure out who they want to impeach. And Kevin McCarthy, the way I see it, is running a law firm.
Yeah.
They have one client.
Yeah.
It's Donald Trump. He's not in charge. The most responsibility McCarthy's ever been given is to sort the starbursts for Donald Trump. That's what he's done.
He did.
And he brags about it.
I mean, the thing about it that is so wild, and we talked about this on our morning meeting this morning, they have a 5-seat majority. That means
Nancy Pelosi had a 5-seat majority. We didn't see any of this, right?
But he ain't Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah.
Like, Nancy Pelosi's a boss. Like, Nancy Pelosi knows what she's doing, right?
That's right?
This is a different guy. And his majority now depends on how New York gets redistricted, right, which is going to change, and how that Alabama lawsuit plays out, because he's calling Alabama and saying, hey, don't let me lose my majority. So he knows he can't necessarily hold it. He's not that competent. But telling people to vote on impeachment for nothing, for Hunter Biden being related to you, right? That puts his more vulnerable members who won in districts that Biden won in jeopardy. Like, you're a politician, isn't he jeopardizing his own majority?
Yeah, they're a chaos caucus now, and he's asking them to vote for more and more chaos. And it gives us, I think, a nice frame, if we take it and we do it, to say, you know what, we're the competence caucus. Look at Philadelphia.
Right.
I-95 collapsed. Everyone said it was going to take a year to get done.
That's it.
2 weeks, we got that done. So you guys can focus on the chaos we'll deliver competence. And if we keep doing that, I think competence wins.
It's a good point that you make, because there is this kind of, it's working on one level. There is a poll right now that shows 43% of people believe Hunter Biden did something illegal. I mean, if he didn't pay his taxes, he did. Donald Trump did something illegal is only 2 points higher than that. You can see it on the screen, 45%. Same poll, 36% said Joe Biden did something illegal when it comes to his son's business dealings, because it's muddy. And so on the one hand, it works because it does muddy everyone up, right? Are Democrats, or is the DCCC concerned that the mess is actually going to eventually hurt Biden too?
If we play on our side of the field, it's going to hurt Biden. That's why I really want us to be on offense as much as possible. I call it the 3D approach, which is every hearing, we discredit them. We defend where necessary, but we don't have to defend everything, because then you can't tell the difference between both sides. And then third, always pivot to what we will deliver. So today we had Mayorkas, Homeland Security, and Judiciary, started by discrediting Jordan. Really rich that you're having him here when you haven't followed a subpoena for 500 days.
There you go.
Defend the nonsense over open borders when border crossings are at an all-time low. Pivot to what we would deliver in the majority, comprehensive immigration reform. I think that formula works for the Biden administration if we do it right.
Yeah, and we have to come back to on this show to the really offensive questioning of Mayorkas, and sort of making him sound almost like a drug dealer. That was really offensive. But also, you all are on offense. I want to play an ad that we actually were going to debut last week, but there were so many other things happening we didn't play it, because there is a going on offense piece to this as well. Let me play this ad, because it does make the point that Republicans really are fixated on stuff nobody cares about. I don't think anyone other than the 3 million, some odd people who watch Fox News, it's a good number.
That's right.
But that ain't, there are 227 million adults. They don't even know who Hunter Biden is.
That's right.
But here's an ad that I guess you're behind. Let's look.
MAGA Republicans in Congress and across the country are so obsessed with transgender Americans that they're proposing laws that would effectively create on-demand gender inspections of children. It sounds crazy, right? But on-demand gender checks will be the law of the land if we don't stop it. They're your kids. You want them safe, especially at school.
It is mind-blowing to me. I think we did the numbers are maybe 77,000 trans athletes in high schools in the whole country, and of 327 million people. I can't imagine how many people are sitting around worrying about, can I get my gym teacher to take the pants down of the kids and check their genitals? It's crazy to me that that's what they're doing, but it is.
It's not what parents are worried about. And I'll tell you what, they're worried about their kids being safe in their schools from gun violence.
Yeah.
But I finally decided on this issue, MAGA Republicans are not interested in the merits. So let's impose a creep cost. If the logical extension of what you want to do with trans kids is to do an on-demand gender check,
that's terrible.
We're going to call you a creep. And you should be called a creep, and you should have to defend it. And that, again, goes to playing on their side of the field, because this is their obsession. It's not ours.
You told us on their last time you were on about your parents being Republicans. My father was very Reaganite. He's not an American, but he was very much a Reagan guy. I do not remember in the ideology, the idea. I mean, they seem to want to crawl into the beds of every woman in America to make sure that you are getting pregnant and having babies for the country. They want to crawl into the gym locker, the gyms of every elementary school kid, and inspect them to make sure that they're a boy or a girl.
They want to go into the library.
They want to go in the library and pull books out and look at what you're reading. This is the opposite of a freedom agenda. What happened to Republicans being sort of libertarian about leaving you alone?
And it gives us a chance to own freedom, right? The freedom to vote, the freedom for your kids to be safe, the freedom to read, the freedom to make your own healthcare decisions. We should own freedom. And Biden, in his launch video, he really keyed in on that.
Freedom and democracy. We actually want the freedom to vote, not right? We don't want you telling our kids what to read or to define their gender for them. We're the mom and dad. We can do that.